What does leadership look like when decisions don't just affect an organization, but shape everyday life for a nation? When motivation isn't driven by money or visibility, but by responsibility? When leaders don't think about how long they will stay, but about what they will leave behind? In this episode of The People Blueprint, we speak with Rashmi Govil, an experienced people leader who brings a rare lens to leadership, accountability, and legacy in a country as young, ambitious, and complex as India. This is not a conversation about designation, sector, or authority. It is a conversation about stewardship, about institutions outliving individuals, and about what leadership must become when the future belongs to everyone. This is the People Blueprint. Welcome to the People Blueprint, where we explore the future of work through the lens of leadership, people strategy, and the human choices that quietly shape institutions over time. I'm your host, Sheila Vasan Singla. Today's conversation is one that I have been personally looking forward to, because every once in a while you meet leaders who carry immense responsibility but wear it with remarkable humility. Leaders who operate at scale but think deeply about people. And leaders who quietly and consistently are building something far larger than themselves. Rashmi Govil is one such leader. With decades of experience in one of India's largest and most admired and complex organizations, she has led people, shaped systems, and navigated challenges where the consequences of leadership are not confined to boardrooms, but extend to the everyday life of millions. She sees leadership as a creator of legacy for future generations, which is far more demanding and even more meaningful. Rashmi, welcome to the People Blueprint. I'm so delighted and honored to have you on the show.
Sheila, trust me, the pleasure is all mine.
Rashmi, you have worked for a large part of your career in an organization where leadership decisions don't just impact the organization, they impact the everyday lives of millions of Indians. Now, how has that impacted the way you look at leadership and your own leadership style?
So, Sheila, what I believe is that all of us are products of our environment, the environment that is surrounding us, the environment that we've been brought up in. So, definitely the environment that I have grown up with has shaped my leadership. But I would say that it has shaped my leadership to be more mature, more responsible, because when you are aware that your decisions are impacting others much beyond your organization, you tend to be more fair, you tend to be more equitable, and you tend to be very, very responsible because you're not answerable to one stakeholder, but hundreds of stakeholders. So it's really sharpened my leadership to be more responsible.
And you did mention the word decisions. In today's world, people say, oh, leadership decisions have to be quick and snappy and you can't really take long. When you are in a kind of environment where you're impacting so many people beyond the organization, what changes in the way decisions have to be made by leaders?
So the decisions can be snappy, can be quick, but the decisions cannot be frivolous or the decisions cannot be, not thought through. Because many a times a decision may not be retractable because of the kind of impact it would have on the society at large. So the decisions, while being snappy and decisive and agile, cannot be frivolous. They have to be well thought.
And isn't that a challenge in today's world, especially given the kind of environment we are in? Leaders have to make more and more decisions on less and less facts. Because you really don't know how the world is shifting, right? You wake up in the morning, there's something new. Then you go to sleep, wake up the next morning, there's something else. So in a company or in an organization where the impact is felt multifold across and outside the organization, how do you recommend leaders should be able to go through this process of decision making where they're not feeling paralyzed for the need for more data, more information, but still can make a decision which is well thought through, like you said?
So, Sheila, the way we are brought up in the organization, no, we are handling challenges on a day-to-day basis on a society at large. So, for instance, like say there's Operation Sindoor happening, and certain decisions have to be taken in terms of fuel supplies or in terms of manpower placement. You have to, keep your guardrails intact, but at the same time act quickly and think while running. So this is how we are groomed in the organization right from the beginning. My people in the field, like they are in charge of entire districts, so that capacity to think beyond the role that they have been put in, that comes very early in the leadership. So that's how, despite being able to, despite having a lot of impact of the decisions, we are still able to take the correct decisions when the time comes.
I'm glad you mentioned Operation Sindoor, because I think, when you reach senior leadership, there is a lot of talk of the power of the role, the ego that comes into it. But I don't believe that in certain situations the ego really plays, right? So let's take what you said about Operation Sindoor. I think it's necessary to have a nation-first attitude. And you have mentioned it yourself in our previous conversations about how it's important for leaders to have this nation-first mindset. What are some of the things they can do if they are in the private sector to develop that kind of mindset?
So I'll become a little philosophical on this question, because it is a philosophical question. Sheila, I feel this mindset has to be developed in the classroom, in the childhood, in the upbringing. Because I would like to quote an example of Japan. People identify themselves with their country. People want to do something for their country. And we all heard, how the Japanese soccer team cleaned up their own rooms, and they completely cleaned up the stadium before they left the things as they found it, and the whole world talked about it. Now all this comes from a mindset that has been developed from the childhood, where you are able to identify yourself with a larger goal, where you see beyond yourself. So I feel, we as Indians have to start being proud of an identity which is Indian. And Sheila, I would like to have your views on it, because I know you strongly feel that India is the best and India is where we identify ourselves with.
You have hit the nail on the head, because I believe that there is so much of value and depth in our practices, in our culture, in our ancient wisdom. Because even if you take a look at leadership in the past, it was always about the praja. It was never about the Raja. The Raja was there because of the Praja. So leadership was always about serving an entire community rather than saying they need to serve me. I think, in the past, we did have that style of leadership. But I think we borrowed so much from other countries, especially the West, that somewhere I feel that we have marginalized our own styles of leadership, the Indian style of leadership. And I think it'll do us a lot of good if that were to come back, which obviously is something that you see in larger organizations that are working for the nation rather than just for a certain group of people. I have been seeing something that has been worrisome. I have seen a lot of leadership corrosion happening. I feel that leaders today are actually getting carried away, they're crossing lines, integrity is taking a beating. What we would never do 20 years ago is okay to do now. And if I were to refer to something hilarious that happened, it was that Coldplay concert with the CEO and the head of HR. That kind of stuff was never heard of earlier. I want to ask you about integrity and how you need to be able to carry yourself a certain way, especially when the accountability is to so many. You said there is no place for ego or I in leadership. But how do you ensure, or what is the advice that you can give to people that leadership integrity should not get compromised?
So, Sheila, integrity is again a very, very core dimension of leadership. The leader has to be first answerable to self accountable to self before he can even start being accountable to others. So once you say that you are accountable to self, automatically integrity, responsibility, and care comes into the decisions that you make. And you just don't see, when you are a leader, you are not only accountable, there are people who are watching you, they are getting inspired from you, or they are learning from you, I would say.
Or also learning what never to be.
What never to be. So your behavior and actions are continuously on the watch, and that is why they become even more, they put a more, that's why they say, no, heavy is the head that wears the crown, because you are supposed to be doing things and actions which are within the purview of what can be called as a leader. What you're talking of, these kind of actions are not a corrosion, but truly speaking, in my language, they're not worthy of being called leaders. Because once you are a leader, you have to behave in a certain responsible way. So I think, Sheila, that if people are self-aware, people are self-answerable, integrity, responsibility, accountability will automatically flow.
I agree. And I think the accountability will also lead to a much larger impact on the country.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
there is no doubt that that accountability will strengthen it. Now, if you are accountable, I would think you also become more purposeful. Then you're not just working quarter to quarter or to justify your stance to stakeholders, shareholders, but you're also looking at a much larger picture. If this accountability has to become a part of every leader, how do you think it can begin? Where do you think it can begin?
So, Sheila, you spoke about purpose, accountability leading to purpose. Let me tell you, Sheila, that a leader knows the purpose and a leader shows the purpose. So when people know the purpose for which they are behaving, they will behave in a certain accountable manner. I'll give you an example. When Lord Ram was building a bridge from India to Sri Lanka, every member of the Vanar Sena knew that this bridge is to rescue Ma Sita. So there was a purpose by which they were placing those rocks. So because there was a purpose to it, they were doing it in a more diligent fashion, in a more energetic fashion, in a more dedicated fashion. So, when you have clearly described the purpose, laid down the purpose, the self-accountability automatically follows, because what you are doing, for whom you are doing, whom you are answerable to is absolutely clear.
So that needs to be really spelt out. That who are we accountable to?
And for what purpose we are accountable to, why we are accountable.
So then this leadership integrity is really a play between external accountability and internal moral compass. And both have to kind of balance out as we go along.
So I would like to say that if your internal compass is pointing out to the right north, proper accountability and integrity will never be a doubt at all. It will always, always follow the natural course, because your internal moral compass is pointing out to the right north. See, internally we all aware. We become leaders because we have gone through the grind, gone through the experience, reached a certain level. So we already know what is right or wrong. It's not like we are just coming up and suddenly, being placed as leaders. So if that internalizing of the moral compass is correct, integrity and accountability will never be a question at all.
I want to challenge you on that one a bit, Rashmi. If you will take a look at some of the things that are coming in the news these days about how a certain branch of a certain organization is behaving in a certain way, using religion to go forward or backward or whatever direction they want to go in, you see the internal compass of the people who are doing it is saying we are doing the right thing. But it may not be the right thing for a healthy workplace where, you see, for example, I saw a video which was very disturbing for me about something that happened down south in an office in Kochi, where because somebody was not meeting their target, a chain was tied around their neck, a leash, and they were made to walk like a dog. Now, I mean, that person who's doing it may feel that I'm doing the right thing. I'm pushing for results for the organization. But that doesn't account for the right kind of workspace. There is no human dignity in that workspace. So my point is that very often leadership believes internally I'm doing the right thing. but it may not be something that they're accountable for to the larger public, and therefore they get carried away by their own beliefs. What do you feel about that?
So let's first, break it into pieces.
Okay.
Values, what we call values,
Ji.
I think are same for everyone. Like honesty is a value, truthfulness is a value, integrity is a value. So these values cannot be said, this is value for me and value not for me.
Sure.
Moral values are moral values.
And
Now,
there's truth in them.
there is a truth in them, there
Yeah.
is a stability in them.
Yes.
Now, what you are talking of is toxicity, toxic leadership, and it has got no value in it. So, once the moral compass that I am speaking of is value driven, my religion may teach me certain things, but my religion also teaches me boundaries. And when I start stepping out of those boundaries in the name of religion, that time I'm reaching the line of values. So, once values are strong, that's where the moral compass is what I'm talking of. Then the boundaries automatically get drawn. I'm not questioning beliefs. I'm talking of values. So values and beliefs may be two different things, but values keep you grounded, keep you within the boundaries, and give you the right direction to your actions.
So you're saying that while beliefs may be conflicting, we need to ask ourselves whether the basic human values are getting compromised or not.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
I think you put it very succinctly and very simply that we will have a myriad of beliefs, whether it's religious, whether it's social, cultural, personal beliefs. The question is that are the basic human values something we are aligned on?
Yeah.
And the moment we get aligned on that, then we know that, okay, our beliefs are secondary to the basic human values that we need to propagate in organizations. Now, one of the things that I've seen in today's world is that there seems to be a lot of angst and worry and, how do I say it? A lot of where am I headed next? Now, in this kind of scenario, it is very difficult to expect leaders to build successors. Because the thought is that if I build a successor, I'm basically shooting myself in the foot. I may be asked to go. I may not be as relevant anymore. So have you seen this happening? And why does this succession gap emerge in your opinion?
So, first of all, for me, a leader is somebody who creates more leaders. And this succession gap which you're talking of gets created because leaders are insecure. Maybe insecure because they don't trust themselves, insecure because they don't trust their team, and insecure because they don't want to take a chance with their team. Now see, succession builds when you give people opportunity, when you challenge the team under you, then you are building a succession by building a leadership pipeline. But if you are going to be doing everything on your own, if you're going to be, even interfering in the nitty-gritties of things, every day reporting and all, then you're not a leader, you're a manager. And you're just amplifying your managerial role and calling yourself a leader. So when leaders become insecure, they, kind of start hogging the entire decisions to themselves, ensuring that they are indispensable, nobody can be taking over their positions. But leaders have to inspire people to be, creating a new succession pipeline, not doing everything on their own.
But Rashmi, in a world like today, which is so angst-filled, where you're really not sure the way things are going to happen, you have AI coming in, the next thing you know is that you don't have a job. What do you recommend leaders should be doing to become a little more secure?
So first of all, you have to keep yourself relevant. At whatever stage of hierarchy you are in, you just have to be keeping yourself relevant. I can't say that I don't know computers or AI or high-tech languages so that, I don't know how to use them. If I am a leader, I should be the first one who should be knowing what is the latest in the field so that I can actually see how it can be leveraged and used in my own work. So first of all, the leaders have to keep themselves relevant if they are going to be feeling secure about themselves. Secondly, leaders have to start understanding that they have gone through the grind to reach the position that they are, and there are people who have put them in this position. That's why there's a trust that is placed in them. So why do they start doubting their own capabilities when a trust has already been placed in themselves? So they should encash on that trust, and then kind of have confidence in their own capabilities, that I am going to be delivering on this position because of the values, the kind of value that I bring on the table. So that is why I'm on this position. So there is no question of doubting self. So when you don't doubt yourself, obviously you will be more comfortable in the position you are in, and you don't see others around you as a threat. The minute you start seeing others around you as a threat means you're doubting your own capability.
And you're right, because I do know that with some of the clients we work with, when leaders are not relevant, that is when they get shaky. And it's not an age factor. You could be 25 and irrelevant.
Yes.
You could be 85 and very relevant.
Absolutely.
I have also seen 85-year-old leaders who manage to hold their own. And you were talking about technology. I've seen them lead their organizations in technology. And you would say, yeah, you're 85. You need to slow down. But no such luck. They are leading it all the way.
Yeah.
So
they're invested in what they are doing, and they have faith in themselves and their own delivery. That is why they are leaders.
So let's go back to this insecurity bit that leaders have. In your experience, what are the early signs that you see that somebody is being insecure and not really developing people down the line?
So, from the HR perspective, the first sign that I see is that work gets slowed down. Why? Because all the files are stuck at one workstation, because the leader wants to decide on everything himself or herself. So that's the first preliminary sign that we see, that why this area is getting slowed down, because the leader is hogging the entire information, the entire data, the entire decision making.
They become the bottleneck.
They become the bottleneck. Second sign that you see is that the team is even more insecure than the leader, because they don't know what's happening around them. The information is not flowing freely. The communications are scarce. So there's a restlessness in the team because they don't know what they are doing. So these, few early signs, then there's no delegation happening. So there's no learning happening for the team. The team is just doing a designated job, but not growing beyond the role. So those are the early warning signs that the leader is not really developing the team and is actually an insecure leader.
And if you have a leader who's secure, who's well established, feels relevant, then what are the signs that you see in how they are developing people?
So I have worked personally with one such leader, who would give me an assignment and give me a broad outline of that assignment, and would say that isko karke lao, whatever way. So many a times I would say that I'm not very clear as to what it is to be done. He says, no, you do it first. You bring it to me, then we'll have a look and how we can take it forward, So there the leader was doing two things. One, he was getting a breath of fresh ideas from a person much younger to, leave it in a way to be done. And secondly, when it would come back to the leader would then add value to it, add experience to it, add kind of a frill to it, to how to make it look better. So that kind of leadership, when you are having just an oversight and you are also allowing somebody to grow, it's like, when you have a very big tree, the small trees don't grow under its shadow. So many a times the leader needs to allow the people to be challenged and throw challenges at them to be able to groom them and make them grow. And such leaders are the one looks up to and looks forward to working with.
And especially in today's times.
Yes, absolutely.
When we have such multi-generational workforces. Right?
We're learning how to use the mobile from our children who know few more apps than us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here is a question now, when we talked about a multi-generational workforce. When you have two ends of the spectrum, a young generation supposedly having lesser resilience and lesser staying power, you have leadership that needs to deliver higher levels of productivity, efficiencies, performance. How do the two hit against each other? And what do you think is the challenge?
So, first of all, let's understand how is resilience developed. Resilience is developed when you are allowed to do things on your own, fail on your own, stand back on your feet and again try and do it in a better way. So that's how you develop resilience. वो बोलते हैं ना, गिरते हैं सह सवार मैदान जंग में. So that's how resilience is developed. Now, if you are talking of failure itself, if it's not acceptable in a system, our capacity, our tolerance to failure has reduced over the time. When you say leaders want delivery, leaders want this, leaders want that, performance, then automatically tolerance to failure reduces. Then, and on the other hand, we say the younger generation doesn't have resilience. Where did we give them an opportunity to develop that resilience? And I don't believe that the younger generation is not resilient, because the kind of competition the younger generation today is facing, I don't think you and me face those levels of competition. The urge and the anxiety and the urgency to keep performing, I think the generation has it. What it doesn't have is, because this generation is born out of an era of abundance, they have a kind of a pampered and probably a cushioned, flow to always take the impact of their fall. So what now the leaders need is to challenge the generation, let them develop resilience, but do some sort of hand-holding at some point of time, so they don't completely feel at sea. That's what I would think is required as a support system.
So if you have to develop resilience differently in today's generation as compared to ours, what would you say it would be?
It would be to keep holding their hand once in a while and showing them the right direction, or maybe pulling them up to, get back on their feet.
I think you made a very valid point in the fact that we were allowed to make mistakes earlier on, because the impact of those mistakes were not too many or was not as far-reaching. You're coming to an area that really interests me. I don't think we have spent more on learning than we do these days.
Yes.
More and more money is going into learning.
Yes.
But people are actually learning less and less.
Yes.
So what do you think HR can do to create environments where resilience can be built?
The way we do it in our organization, we are a multi-geography, multifunctional organization. So the way we build resilience is that we keep moving people around from their comfort zones. Once you are in your comfort zone, you've learned it and there's no room for growth. But once you're plucked out from your comfort zone and put in a new environment, that's where you start learning things afresh, even at a later age, even at a bigger role span or whatever. You are automatically challenging yourself and developing resilience. So one thing which HR does in my company is we rotate people in their jobs, in their roles, in their team spans, and we see to it that they are given challenges which are very different from what they were handling earlier. But at the same time, we give good mentors, good coaches to them, so that they don't suddenly fail at what they are doing. So that kind of, we have their back situation is always there.
Understood.
Secondly, we have very strong grievance mechanisms, and people can reach out if there is something really bad happening to them or the system is not taking care of them. So those grievance mechanisms also help them know that we have your back. So you can go and do certain things, we have your back. So these are two things which we strongly believe in.
Now, on the other side, now we've talked about young people and how you give them space to make mistakes, handhold them, have their back. Now let's talk about the other side. How do leaders drive high performance without breaking people? Because invariably, every now and then, in the press, you will, or on social media, you will have a clipping of a boss who's abusing on his team.
I will say, Sheila, that the words like push performance, drive performance is not what I associate leadership with. Leadership inspires performance. See, why I say leadership inspires performance is that if you are a leader who is, in a true sense, a person who knows the job, who knows how to handle a team, the team will, give their life and blood to you to be able to do what you want from them, because you are such an inspirational leader. And the performance that is derived from inspiration is threefold, fourfolds more than what it would be by pushing, by breaking people, by being, driving performance. So I don't like words associated like push, drive with performance. It would rather be
Beautifully
inspire
said.
performance.
Beautifully
I
said.
can give you an example for this. Like, see, when Gandhi ji started the freedom struggle and the movement, people were not told to come and join him. People were not called to join. People joined him willingly. People were ready to do anything for him because he was such an inspirational leader.
And also because there was a purpose beyond the leader.
Absolutely.
There was such
so
a
that's what I
large
said,
purpose.
if the leader knows the purpose and
Yeah,
shows the
yeah,
purpose,
yeah.
people will automatically follow
Yes,
that purpose.
because it's very rarely that you follow people for themselves. I think a leader becomes inspirational when there is a much larger purpose beyond just performance purpose.
And the leader walks the talk, just doesn't talk. If he believes in something, he's also demonstrating. So what we say, in our roles when we are saying we are accountable, we just don't have to be fair. People have to see that we are fair. I can't say I'm fair. My fairness has to be completely on the show. It has to be judged by the others that whether I'm fair or not.
Rashmi, let's come to a conversation that is really dominating boardrooms today, and that is AI. While there is a lot of excitement, there is a lot of anxiety about it as well. And particularly in a country like India, where employability is such a big deal and it links to social and economic stability. My question is, how should organizations look at AI or think about AI where it strengthens human capability rather than taking away or threatening human capability?
So, Sheila, the way I look at it is technology, whenever it comes, it creates anxiety because it's something new for the society. Now, to give you an example, a very crude example for that matter, when cars came, horse carts were under stress. There were protests, there were, all kinds of agitation that we will lose our jobs. But imagine how many jobs it created, from a motor mechanic to a tire specialist to a assembly line worker to endless jobs endless jobs it created. So while the anxiousness comes from not knowing the technology, it not necessarily will actually replace jobs. So what leaders need to do is prepare their workforce for adoption of the technology. They need to upskill, they need to reskill, they need to create a buzz around adoption of the technology while giving the comfort that this is not going to take over your job. So this is exactly how I look at AI also. It's a technology to be leveraged, to be used for your own efficient production or your own efficiency improvement, but not as a replacement tool of human resource. Technology amplifies your reach while at the same time simplifying what you do.
And also perhaps creating options that we can't think of right now.
Absolutely true.
And I think that's where perhaps leaders have a very strong role to play in the way they communicate. How do you think leaders should communicate about AI, especially in large organizations where there's so much of fear at the shop floor that what's going to happen to me?
So I will give you an example of my own organization, where we have done umpteen number of webinars on AI for mass learning of AI. Even the shop floor guy can join that webinar and learn what AI is all about, how to understand AI, how to even write, prompts under AI. So we've done on a mass learning scale. At the same time, we have identified areas where AI can actually make a change in the way processes are done. And there we have created specialists with specialized learning of artificial intelligence. We have created teams who are continuously working only on ML and AI. And these teams are, looking at high-end utilization of AI. But at the same time, we have taken care of mass learning so that people are not threatened by the adoption of AI. So this kind of learning drive itself is given a communication to everyone that my company is preparing me for something that is to come. While the adoption will keep happening, but the preparation has already there.
If you remember, you and I were in a conference together, and there was one person who spoke about how if you have auto driving trucks, then the entire logistics industry, especially the drivers, will be out of jobs. And they could be in tens of thousands. The question there is really then, what are we doing as this organization of, let's say, the organization that has these truck drivers, what are we doing to make them capable of another job? Are we building capability? Are we making them more ready to take on something else?
So when we talk at that scale, Sheila, see, our country's education system is still theory driven. It's not vocational training driven. You know, we set up ITIs to give vocational trainings to our people, but we all know what is the fate of the ITIs today. So when a country's system is vocational training driven, then you have capabilities which are used. So for example, if we are saying that drivers would be made jobless, can we think of giving them a vocational training of how to work on chips, how to work on circuits, how to be producing more parts which would be required for the AI to function. So that kind of vocational training is missing in our country.
Interesting. And I will come to that in just a bit, because I have one more question. As AI and technology becomes more capable, what do you think humans need to get better at in an environment where technology is taking over so much?
First of all, humans should understand that their core human values of emotion, of feelings, of bonding, that they have to hold very, very close to their heart, because that's what differentiates them from an automated technology. And in the same conference, let me quote Johnny C. Taylor when he says that AI plus HI will give you ROI. So you have to collaborate with AI, with your human intelligence, to get a return on investment. So that's where I feel that humans have to get better at utilization of technology, but at the same time get better in what defines them as humans.
Interesting. So it's really about being more and more and more human.
Absolutely.
And letting technology be less and less and less human.
Yes.
Interesting.
Technology is doing its part. We need to do our part. And let me also add to this, Sheila, that humans have this capacity of forward thinking. Technology is completely based on backward thinking, because whatever data sets are available are fed into the technology, so they know how to act on what is available. Humans have the capacity to look in the future, to plan for the future, looking forward. So that is all what they have to get better at.
Interesting. The other day I'd taken an Uber, and the guy said that he was studying to do his PhD. And I'm sitting there saying, a person who's doing his PhD is driving a cab. What is wrong with our education system? These are people we should be coveting, we should be, really treasuring such people, and we are not. So my question to you is, what is the real challenge when it comes to employability in India? And how should we be thinking about it differently?
So first of all, Sheila, let's break your question into two parts. One is employability. So where, the education system, like I mentioned, has to be more practical driven than theory driven. We are still too much into a rote form of education. The second is that if that PhD Uber driver is driving a vehicle, what is wrong with it? I would say that we also need to appreciate, in a country of our size, with the population of our size, dignity of labor is what we should be looking at. Anybody could be doing any job as long as it's healthy, honest, and giving him an honest amount of money from it. So, see, in the Western world, I was once traveling in a bus. This driver was a MBA graduate, and he was owning the bus, and he says, I drive it just for my own passion. And he was the one who was the tour guide also. He was the one who was operating the bus also. And he was the one who was taking us around also. So, there, the dignity of labor is such that you could be anybody, but you could do any kind of job. So, I'll give you another example. Like in Japan, you have this bullet trains. So, the Shinkansen crew, the cleaning crew, they made a mark for themselves and take a pride in what they do by cleaning it in 7 minutes flat, 1,000-seated train. So where is it that pride coming from? Because the dignity of labor is there. It is recognized as work, and any kind of work is given equal amount of importance. So that again is a problem with our society, where every 12th pass is expected to do either engineering or medical. I feel that people should be taking pride in whatever they are doing.
I completely agree with you, and I do believe that the caste, class, and social perceptions do impact the jobs we take. But if you have a PhD student driving an Uber because he doesn't get another job, then something in the system is broken. Whether it's the education system or the way we are nurturing our own talent, then something somewhere is not fitting in.
So not necessarily, Sheila, because the country has so much of population that it is not able to have so much of jobs. And that's why now that the economy is literally booming and we're looking at a Viksit Bharat proposition, probably the economy will reach at a point where it can actually give jobs to the kind of population that we have. We are a very, very mass populated country. That also is one of the challenge, because you see an advertisement for 10 positions, you have a lakh applicants for those. So that means there's that much of requirement and that many positions. The positions are still very, very few compared to the people who are applying for them.
It's such a paradox because we say that there are no jobs, but if you take a look at the quality of work being done, let's even take a look at a simple thing like a divider being laid on a road. It's just such shoddy job. How do we, in the way we educate our people, bring in the concept of great work? Everything is just done jugaad.
So Sheila, that's not a question of skill. That's a question of intent. So, the intent to put the right divider is not there. So the skill is now coming under question, but the question is here about intent, not the skill. But yes, there are occasions where skills are also not available in the form they should be available. And that's where I said that my education system is focused more on theory than on practical. The hands-on training where people, the day they pass out of engineering, they can sit on a panel and work. I don't think it's actually churning out those kind of skills.
Yeah. Do you believe that there is a solution to really bringing about dignity of labor in India? That you can have somebody from a semi-urban society saying, I'm okay to clean trains, but I will make it the best looking train ever. Do you think there is a solution to make Indians think like that?
So this is like a culture thing. If a parent teaches a child to respect the housemaid that comes in the home to clean, and अगर उसको बोलेंगे कि आप उससे आप करके बोलो, आप behave properly with her, then you are teaching the child the dignity of labor in the childhood itself. Today, the kind of society that we are in, we judge people just because they speak broken English. And we feel proud if we are speaking broken Hindi. So, it's a very, very strong cultural thing that you are speaking of, and you're touching a nerve there, because the society as a whole has, been born out of a fabric which says king ka beta king hoga, warrior ka beta warrior hoga, baniya ka beta baniya hoga. So, that kind of fabric the society has come out of. It needs a very strong cultural change in itself to understand dignity of labor. And I think people have to get more consciously training their children to bring this cultural change about. So that, see, why you see the difference today in the Western world. If somebody is passed out of class 12th and earning his own pocket money through waiting tables or washing dishes, the parents don't even mind. Can you allow your own children to go and wash dishes and wait tables to earn their own pocket money? We don't have that psyche at all. We'll say, अरे Mrs. Sharma का बच्चा वहाँ जाके देखो restaurant में बर्तन धो रहा था. That's the society that we are there.
And my question was more around, will India need a lot more skills? And are we as leaders in a corporate environment really doing anything to build those skills for a future India?
So again, coming back to my organization, see, we are running something called skill development institutes.
Okay.
Now these, and skill development institutes is not been run by my organization alone. There are a lot of corporates who are investing in their, from the CSR budget, the corporate social responsibility budget, into skilling youths. You will have corporates, you see that advertisement where women are being taught sewing skills, or women are being taught how to take care of a dairy in the local vicinity, or women are being taught how to do cooperative formation and work around a cooperative. So there's a lot of work being done by corporates, one to teach skills and the other to teach entrepreneurship. Both is happening. So when I say we are looking at we run a skill development institute, we, right from makeup skills to waiting tables to catering skills to advanced welding skills to pumping skills to plumber's job, we are really imparting those skills in our youth at a mass scale.
Okay.
And there are corporates which are involved in skilling people.
Is it the public sector, or you also see
Even
it in
I
the
see
private?
it in the private sector also, because their corporate social responsibility budgets is also to be spent either on health or skilling the youth or creating infrastructure. So all that is now started happening in a very structured manner in the country.
And I think that is critical to be done.
Absolutely, yes.
While you mentioned this thing about sewing skills, again I saw a clip which really worried me. And I'll tell you what I saw. I saw this poor chap who's a tailor, who must be working in a garment factory, hunched over a table, and he is doing his cutting and stitching. And on his head is like a visor that he's wearing, and that visor is capturing everything that he's doing. The idea being that in the next 6 months, can a robot do it?
Oh.
And I felt such a pang of sadness that here is a poor man who's perhaps got a job and a livelihood. What's going to happen to him? So if corporates are already doing this, incredible.
Let's say, Sheila, that skills will get shifted elsewhere, jobs will be created elsewhere. And let's not look at a world where we feel that, there will be a challenge in providing humans work in their own arena.
I want to be as optimistic as you. Which also brings me back to an area that you and I have discussed in passing, and that is the concept of gender and leadership. And I have always believed that leadership has no gender, and it's only responsibility that leadership has. But time and again, we have this concept of women leadership. Let's get a program out for women leaders. And while we're doing all that, and we are saying we should do all this for women leadership, there is also this other aspect that there are cultural and social and structural barriers to women doing well. So I want to talk a little about it. My first question to you is, do labels like women leaders genuinely work against equality?
Absolutely, yes. The minute you label something, you've created a classification. And how can you have a classification and say it's equal? So, like I say that you never call men leaders, but you called women leaders. Have you ever heard of a term men leaders?
No.
So then why women leaders? So that means you are trying to create a classification. And more so, terms like diversity hiring, terms like diversity statistics, the more blow up you do on these rather than doing the actual work, the more you are trying to showcase that there is a class that I'm treating differently, and I'm doing something, like an obligation to that gender. Whereas what you should be doing is more and more treating them with the same opportunities, giving them the same challenges, treating them like a genderless workforce in your team, and not putting labels to them.
So I do agree with you. I've been a woman entrepreneur, and I don't think I have ever thought of myself as a woman entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. And when I deal with people as an entrepreneur. It's not like I think differently because I'm a woman, or I behave differently, yes, because I'm a woman. So how do you think we should rethink some of the narratives around leadership and women if we were to bring in this true equality?
So first of all, the numbers have to go up. Till the men are in majority in the workforce, the voice of the majority will always overpower the voice of the minority. And secondly, what I've seen is that this is where, the women have to shine through, because whenever you are in an organization, because you are in the minority, you are more noticed, you are more, everything that you do gets more amplified because it's you who did that. So there's so much of expectations and watch happening on you, that whatever you do is more under a spotlight than anybody else. So you can leverage this as a strength, I would say to all the women, that you create examples of your capacity, of your capability, of your confidence, that whatever you are doing gets equally amplified as a recognizing point rather than a, gossiping point. So I am very confident that if the women, because of this noticeability attached to the roles, do
Can
things,
use that as a
strength, leverage it to an extent where they outshine every other member. So I think more and more drive towards this would come in.
So you're saying that the narrative should be more based on how we perceive ourselves and how we project ourselves, rather than expecting the system around us to change all the time.
So the system has to be definitely, I tell my male colleagues that you always say that, she'll go on maternity leave, she'll have children problems. I said that is only a small segment of her career. In a 30-year or 35-year-old career span, if she goes on a maternity leave for 6 months or has few leaves because her child is sick, she's also the prime caregiver of the family. So that long rope, if you give her for a very smallest part of her life, then you can have an equal workforce in your society.
So what is your advice to women who are balancing family, ambition, career, home? How does that all work out?
So Sheila, I'm so happy you asked this question, because see, the way I look at it is the society places a lot of expectations on the women. But while the society is placing a lot of expectation on the women are placing a lot of expectations on themselves as well. Now, where do you find the balance? Now, the way I look at it is, so if I am bringing up a young child, so when I was bringing up my daughters, I had a complete support system built around my family. So if I have built a complete support system around my family, and I'm aware that that support function is working smoothly, I will create special days for my family where I am personally involved, but not necessarily that I have to be there 365 days, 24/7, and then only my guilt will get lessened. What I am saying is that I am seeing that my child is being brought up well in a very, very healthy support environment, whereas there are days which are so special and so intimate with the family that there are always remain special with memories around them, and there is no sense of guilt then. The problem starts when you start wondering, how do I meet the expectations of my mother-in-law, my husband, my child? What you need to be first meeting is your own expectations of your own self, of what you feel is what you are doing. So there would be times when people will say, "Arey, your child is sick, you are still in the office." I said, "No, there's somebody who's taking care and I'm already monitoring." But I don't need to feel guilty about it. I know, because what I'm doing, I have. So this is what I'm trying to say, is that guilt is self-driven because we expect more from ourselves, which even the society probably is not expecting ourselves. And who are we to say that we are less mothers if we are not around our children? Today, my children are way more proud of me than probably had I been there with them 24/7, they would have been. And that is why women have to work doubly hard, because here they are going to be taking care of their families as well, and then trying to prove themselves in a male-dominated world also. So they do work doubly hard, but I think it is possible.
Wow. I think my biggest takeaway from being an ambitious woman who also wanted to be a great family person is build circles of support.
It is.
You won't believe this. There was a time when I used to travel almost 20 days a month on work. And there were times when there would be a parent-teacher meeting. And my husband's in meetings, I'm in meetings, we didn't know what to do. Do you know who would go for the parent-teacher meeting? My executive assistant. She would say, "You don't worry, I will go." But I think the ability to create these circles of support, whether it was your mother-in-law, whether it was your sister-in-law, whether it's your mother, it's about creating a strong circle of support. They always say, right, it takes a village to grow up a child.
Yes, it does.
But it's been a challenging journey, I'm sure, for you, as it has been for me. But when you look back, what would be the 3 or 4 things that you would say have worked in your favor over the long career that you've had in human resources?
So you mentioned the word ambition. ambition in a woman is viewed negatively. But I would urge all the women to have dreams, to have ambitions, to have a journey they're looking forward to. Because if you don't dream, if you don't have ambition, you don't drive yourself, you don't create those support systems that you mentioned, you don't work around an ecosystem which works for you to be able to push forward. So first of all, I would urge, I had a dream, I had an ambition which I wanted to achieve, and I saw to it that I create so many support systems and layers that all of it comes together at some point of time. Secondly, I never allowed people to judge me, in the sense that I was not swayed by their judgments. I was not swayed by their, opinions about me. I don't really bother about what people have to say about me, because what I bother is who I am caring for, whether they have a grudge against me, not what everybody. So I'm not out to please the world. I'm out to only please myself and my family. So that also helped me to lessen any guilt that I would carry. The third would be I'm extremely hardworking. I feel that hard work and sincere hard work really pays. So if I have to do a certain thing, I don't have the time and energy to fight it out with my husband, ki why are you not doing it? Why should I only do it and waste my time on that? If I have to do it, I just simply do it and get over with it. And same goes for the office. I take things in the stride. I take things as they come. I don't over fret and become over anxious about what the future holds in store. Because I feel that if my journey is honest, if my hard work is honest, things will automatically follow. So these are 2-3 things which have kept me in good state.
I love the third one, that you work your today. If your today works out okay, the tomorrow will be better. Wow, I really love that. It's been such a pleasure, Rashmi, having you on the People Blueprint. Thank you for bringing such clarity, such conviction, such wisdom, and such humility to this show today. I'm really glad you were a part of it.
Thank you, Sheila. It's always been a pleasure talking to you, and so was today, because there's so much common space that we share in our ideals and our ideologies. It was an absolute delight having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Today's conversation reminds us that leadership is not just about titles or tenure. It's about responsibility, about choosing legacy over ego, stewardship over spotlight, and people over fear. In the face of technology, pressure, and constant change, the real question isn't how quickly we adapt, but what kind of leaders we become in the process, and who we as leaders truly serve. To our listeners, if this episode made you rethink leadership, accountability, or the impact you leave behind, share it with someone who is shaping people or institutions in their own way. Follow the People Blueprint on LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube for more conversations at the intersection of leadership, learning, and the future of work. Until next time, stay curious and get future ready.